fighting against the same capitalist enemy.
National Socialists, that is Nazis, and International Socialists, that is Antifa, agree. Down with democracy and capitalism. The real neo-Nazis rally in Arkansas, November 10th, 2018. As I've said in past video, folks, when I hear about rallies held by actual white supremacists and actual neo-Nazis and so on, I'll cover it, and I have. Since I've started making these videos, I've been aware of 3, and I've covered all 3. Now here's a 4th. This time in Little Rock, Arkansas, November 10th, 2018, by a group called the National Socialist Movement, who I notice are with Matthew Heimbach. If you know my earlier videos, you know Matthew Heimbach is the guy, along with his father-in-law, Matthew Parrott, started the Traditionalist Workers' Party. But Matthew Heimbach here is wearing the same symbol as the rest of these National Socialist Movement people. By the way, notice the National Socialist Movement sounds a lot like the National Socialists, as in the Nazi Party, and I think that's on purpose. Here they are. You can see swastikas, the SS, the white power symbol. Yeah, these are the real neo-Nazis, by which I mean a new version of the Nazi Party, National Socialism, the National Socialist Movement. Not that they are the only neo-Nazis, but they are a neo-Nazi group. By the way, the video that you are seeing is all from News to Share, for which there's a link in the description. They have a few short videos and a almost 3-hour-long live stream on that channel. You would think that if Antifa shows up to events like this, that they would be able to tell the difference between groups like this and the other groups that they call neo-Nazi and white supremacist and etc. Groups like the Proud Boys, for example, and Patriot Prayer. My word, these people are not very bright, are they?
The difference between the Republicans and Democrats is minuscule. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump advance the same interests of the bourgeoisie.
We should keep our country nice and clean by getting trash like you out of here.
Again, what you're seeing are the actual neo-Nazis, not the moderate right-wingers or the left libertarians or the classical liberals or the conservatives or the Republicans that these people call Nazis or neo-Nazis, etc. These guys are the neo-Nazis, stupid! And in fact, they have a lot in common with Antifa and the rest of the far left. Again, this is Matthew Heimbach, who along with his father-in-law Matthew Parrott head the Traditionalist Workers' Party, the same group that Antifa and BLM came to attack in Sacramento in the summer of 2016. You can see my videos about that by seeing the links below. The Traditionalist Workers' Party, including Matthew Heimbach, were supposed to be there, but it seems they never actually showed up, or maybe they showed up after the riot happened, but there was a riot where you had Antifa and BLM and other groups on one side all attacking the Golden State skinheads who did show up. As I've shown in my videos about this riot, both of these groups, the Golden State Skinheads and Matthew Heimbach's Traditionalist Workers' Party, are ethno-nationalist and so on.
Next time we have this conference, I want to see twice the amount of people here. In 10 years, I want a Nuremberg rally, and I think with our hard work, we can do it.
Rather than universal liberty for all, they want a hierarchy of power with white, heterosexual males at the very top. The groups that came to the rally to attack them, as in BLM and Antifa and so on, want a hierarchy of power with white hetero males at the very bottom. I and many others have been pointing out the parallels and the similarities of the far left and the far right. What the extreme right calls identitarianism, the extreme left calls identity politics. So what? Two different terms for pretty much the same thing, or arguably two sides of the same coin. It's all just discriminating against people based on skin color, sex, sexual orientation, and so on. It's abandoning universal principles for power. Power for some over others. And lumping people together based on things like their skin color and so on. Also, both these identitarians on the left and, identity politics people on the left and identitarians on the right, they tend to share a hatred for Jews and conspiracy theories of all varieties involving Zionist plots that run the world, or at least try to.
Right now we are living in an environment where the entire Western world is, for better or worse, doped up on Jewish propaganda. No matter who you are around the world, if you're fighting for your national identity, your enemy is the international Jew, and we cannot avoid that. And that is the enemy who we are fighting.
By the way, my take on the whole Jewish conspiracy thing, this is just a modern version of the old, hey, there's sick people in town, we don't know what's going on. I know, the Jews poisoned the well. Let's go kill them, that'll solve things, yeah. That's all this is. Whether it's coming from Antifa people, whether it's coming from the far right, whatever, it's just a modern version of an old superstition. And by the way, notice that the Jews aren't the only people that are blamed for the problems of the world, okay? Life is going to include suffering, okay? You're never going to be 100% happy for more than just a few fleeting moments. That's life. Some of us take responsibility for that. Other people point to a scapegoat and say it's their fault. Sometimes it's the Jews, sometimes it's the bourgeoisie, which, by the way, a lot of the time is just code word for Jews. A lot of the people on the far left say, it's the bourgeoisie, and they actually do mean the Jews if you scratch under the surface and ask them enough questions. Some people say it's men, it's white people, it's white hetero cis het men. Whatever the case may be. So that's my take on the whole anti-Jew thing. Left or right, they are all racist, by the way, by mere virtue of playing identity politics. Whether they are left or right, identity politics is racism, sexism, etc. By the way, fascists, Nazis, and communists are in the same category. They're all totalitarian. And don't tell me communism isn't totalitarian. It does in fact involve dictatorship. As I've already shown in past videos, see the link below, alright? Now listen to what Matthew Heimbach says about capitalism, by the way.
Currently, we have essentially an anarcho-tyranny where the capitalist class is in charge of the police, is in charge of the courts, is in charge of the private prison system and things like that. So it's important for us to identify that these institutions have really been seized away from the people and concentrated in the hands of capital.
That's another thing that they all agree on, these socialists. These national socialists on the one hand, and international socialists on the other hand. Left or right, who the fuck cares? They're socialists, and that's not okay. My point is, they all suck for the same reasons. They are all far too collectivist and far too little individualist. You know, there are authoritarians on the left and on the right, people, if you don't already know. There are libertarians on the left and libertarians on the right. And I think the difference between libertarian / individualist on the one hand and authoritarian / collectivist on the other hand is more important than the difference between left and right. By the way, share this video with anyone on the far left or the far right that you ever encounter on social media, because this is the sort of thing that tends to piss them off. Not always, because Matthew Heimbach is going to be very forthright about the things that he shares with Antifa. But for the most part, these people, far left or far right, get very upset by these things. So share it with them. Now, I definitely think that we should allow bad ideas to be expressed. In fact, we should look at bad ideas. As long as they have some sort of hold over people, we should look into them and see exactly what these people believe. And if the ideas are bad ideas, well, then they will evaporate in the sunlight. With that in mind, let's listen to Matthew Heimbach.
Some people say things like Antifa are the real Nazis or Antifa are the real fascists. As a fascist yourself, what do you think of the claim that Antifa are the real fascists?
Okay, so in terms of like the idea of like political opposition to like the status quo, right? That's neither a left-wing nor a right-wing thing. The idea that, you know, Antifa are the real Nazis, they've been reading a little too much Dinesh D'Souza, which is cute, but historically illiterate. So what I would say to that is, you know, most Antifa, for instance, are anarchists.
By the way, I do not think that we can say that most Antifa are anarchists, perhaps, but perhaps most are anarcho-communists, or perhaps a significant amount of them are just straight-up communists. We just don't have that data. By the way, you can call yourself an anarchist. It doesn't matter. If you're acting like a wannabe fascist or wannabe totalitarian, then you're not an anarchist. Notice, by the way, that even if they are anarchist, their behavior makes necessary the state, because you need police to step in to stop them from attacking innocent people. which they often do. Now back to an actual neo-Nazi.
I mean, I know plenty of Antifa members. You know, we've even had some nice dialogues. One of them is making me a scarf currently. So I'm really looking forward at a rally to being given my first.
Antifa's making you a scarf.
One of their organizers is, because we've been doing this so long. You know, even with the face mask, you get to start recognizing, like, oh, hey, I saw you at 3 different rallies. You know, we're in opposition to each other, but I've got a lot of respect for the organized left that's revolutionary, because at least they really believe in something, more than liberals or conservatives do, and they address a lot of issues like income inequality, the prison-industrial complex, American imperialism, that we can agree on. Like, you know, I said, sort of jokingly about the Red-Brown Alliance.
By the way, if you don't know what he means by Red-Brown Alliance, that means the Nazis and the Communists. Remember, before they were enemies, well, they weren't enemies.
Red-Brown Alliance, but historically, the idea of National Socialists and Fascists hopefully being able to work with members of the radical left is a future, right? Where we're not going to tell people how to live, but we're fighting against the same capitalist enemy. We're fighting against the same capitalist enemy. We're fighting against the same capitalist enemy. But no, like, anarchists are not the same as National Socialists, because National Socialists believe in a hierarchical society. You know, we believe in essentially a strong government with an individual leader, and anarchists are the opposite of that, right? They're all about the collective. So the idea that, Antifa or leftists are the real Nazis, like, no, just because you wear black doesn't define what a Nazi is, right? Like a National Socialist. Just because you oppose the capitalist system doesn't make you a National Socialist or a fascist. Ideologically, we're very, very distinct from one another.
Ideologically distinct in some ways, but in many ways very much alike. As far as I'm concerned, they are identical in the ways that I deem to be important. They are both identity politic or identitarian, whatever you want to call it. They are both authoritarian / collectivist in the extreme. To me, if you're authoritarian or collectivist in the extreme, it doesn't matter if you're left or right. You're absolute, you're dictatorial, you're totalitarian. I do not care if you're left or right. So, fuck you.
I wouldn't say that we've taken a page from Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. We like some of the things that he does for the country, and we dislike a lot of the other things. We don't agree with his warmongering over in Syria and some of those things. But on the other hand, we do believe in stopping illegal immigration. I think most Americans do, and that's why he was elected. But to classify us as Trump supporters would be incorrect.
There you go, folks. What do you think? Until next time, give me liberty or give me death.
We're fighting against the same capitalist enemy.